This is Floral City. It's a place where you can relax and just be exactly who you are. There are no dress codes here. There's no status quos to stress you out. It's actually like stepping back into yesterday. Trees blowing in the breeze, the flowers on the porch boxes of the historic homes, and our come on in attitude and friendliness make this place of Floral City graceful, laid back, and beautiful. It's a hidden treasure of Florida's nature coast. Here in Floral City, we might be a small town, but we have old things to new things, barbecue to beauty, flowers to fishing, rails to trails, and fine arts to frog legs. We've got just a little bit of everything here in Floral City. It's our historic country culture. Hi friends, welcome back to Floral City, the real old Florida. I'm really glad you could join us today. We are having a field trip today on our little show, and we are, rather than being in Floral City proper, we're out in the Withlacoochee State Forest. So as we stand here today, we are in the corner of Highway 491 and Trail 17. And we're going to go back in today and we're going to show you a part of Citrus County that maybe you don't know about. And it also, we're going to show you some things to do when you come here to Floral City that aren't just water sports and things. There's hiking, biking, trail riding, all kinds of things. The main focus, though, of today's show is going to be a little town called Mansfield. And we're going to go out there, we're going to show you about the town that used to be there. It is now a ghost town. Give you some information and some history on it. We're going to see cemeteries and all kinds of things. So I'd really enjoy if you could come along with us today and see what we see and what we enjoy every day, right here in Floral City, the real old Florida. Friends, this is Mansfield. And here we are at Mansfield. Mansfield is a little town. It is now a ghost town in the middle of the Withlacoochee State Forest, but it once was our county seat, the original county seat of Citrus County. The town itself was founded in 1884, right about the same time that Floral City was, and it was also platted out by one of the same people. While Floral City was platted out by Austin Mann and Mr. Havron, Austin Mann went ahead and platted Mansfield as well. He had lots of orange groves, lots of vast holdings here, land holdings, so he wanted to make it his town. While the town of Mansfield itself was laid out in 1884, in 1887, Austin Mann took a petition to the state legislature and asked that the large county that was Hernando County at the time be broken into 3 smaller counties. In this way, he was a visionary. If you notice that when you look at a map of Citrus County, the bottom line is not straight across. It is actually, there's a little jut at the bottom of it, and that was at much of the dismay of Hernando County at the time. That was all brought into Citrus County so that all of the phosphate mines and the land holdings he had would all be contained within Citrus County. When they did go ahead and make Citrus County a county, and Hernando and then Pasco, we needed a county seat. And while a new county needs a county seat, Mr. Mann was more than happy to ask and see that if Mansfield could become that county seat. He was in hopes that the railway would come this way and it would help to improve his business with his orange groves and the land holdings he had here in this area. At one time in the late 1800s, I would say 1884, 1887, 1889, this area where we're standing that is now all forest was over 70 acres of orange groves. There were over 50 acres of farmlands. There were sawmills. there was lots of industry in that time for this small town. Well, as with most governments, what happened to Manfield was one of the stories that is in Citrus County. It's one of our biggest history stories here. The town of Manfield was the county seat in 1887, and you had two factions. You had the Man faction, which was for Austin Man, and then you had the other part of the government, which was near towards Tompkinsville or Inverness, and they were the Anti-Mans. And they wanted the railroad to come through over there and thought that the county seat should be in that area. Austin Man, however, thought that this being the geographical center point of the state, and it being his town, thought that the railroads should come this way and go through here. Of course, as you have in politics, you always have one side and the other, and they had votes, many, many votes, I believe over 6, to decide who was going to be the county seat, whether it was going to be Tompkinsville or whether it was going to be Manfield. At the time, they had, like I said, over the 6 votes, and they could not decide. There was not a majority that voted. It was pretty even. So, being that the Anti-Mans in Inverness decided that they weren't going to wait for another election, when they came to Manfield for the election, while court was going on in the one room and the lawyers were giving their arguments as to why each side should have the county seat, you could hear a rumbling in the rooms next door. And evidently what was going on was the Anti-Mans were pretty much tired of the back and forth and not knowing where they were going to go, so they decided they were just going to pick up that courthouse and they were going to take it with them. And that's what they did. They came over, they loaded up all of the files and boxes and desks onto wagons, and they were going to proceed to carry them then across Citrus County. So in the middle of the night, they came over here, they picked up all the stuff in the courthouse and literally stole the courthouse, including Captain Zimmerman, who was the clerk of the county courts at the time. He's still to this day one of our most favored politicians of the past, and he was actually a resident of Floral City as well. When all this was happening, he insisted to stay and do his work. He didn't think that it should be moved. So they asked the sheriff, what do we do with him? And the sheriff asked the lawyers, and they said, well, I would put him in the wagon. So they picked him up and they put him in the wagon and they tied him down, gave him a little lantern, and all the way to Inverness, he did county business. When they pulled into Inverness, they pulled the wagon up, unloaded everything into the building that was to act as the courthouse until that one was built, and stood Mr. Zimmerman up at the door and had him claim that Inverness, Florida was the county seat for Citrus County in 1887, and it is until this day. After all that happened, Manfield continued for a few years to grow a little bit. The people who were here stayed here. It at one time, about that time, had a population of over 250 people, which is quite a good-sized town when you look around and you're out here in the middle of the forest. Of course, they had the pond, and that, helped, of course, to sustain their life and their things that they did here. After that, though, when the railroad missed here, and it went into Inverness instead, Manfield just basically, in the next few years, just kind of fell out of existence. You did still, after the town was gone, there were still turpentine stills out here in this area, lots of turpentine stills. You still had your phosphate mining going on here in the forest. So the forest is a place that's very off the beaten track for us, but I find that a lot of our history is within the borders of the Withlacoochee State Forests. Now, as I'm talking about Manfield being the town and being a ghost town, I don't want you to come out here and think that there's going to be old buildings sitting around everywhere. The history is here, but it has to be looked for. If you do some research and you find your maps, you can see where some of the old trails still go, the same places. Some of them are overgrown, there might be new ones, but a lot of the stuff is still the same because it has been preserved here in the forest. And if you pay attention to the trees and the different things, you can see which ones might have been used for different things, which ones might have been the ones that people used for pleasure, to sit and have picnics and things under with their family. You can very easily see where there could have been a town here. You don't see much of it today, but if you have half an imagination and a little bit of information, you can paint the picture of this town all by yourself. Okay, friends, I'm tired of talking. It's time to go do some treasure hunting. So come on with us. We'll be right back.